Here on Channel 4 now, revealing the truth about our relationships through what we don't say. Body Talk.
In everyday life, we all have a sixth sense. Some of us are masters of it, others don't know it exists. The clues are in our actions. You'll be amazed what you can discover about other people. You'll be shocked to find out what you're giving away. I call these clues tells, a term used by poker players. It refers to the unintentional actions that reveal what kind of hand their opponents might be holding. They can also help you to understand friendship, power, love and sex. From the moment you meet to the day you marry, this program explains the tells that show who will make a good mate and who won't. It'll also help you to understand other people's marriages, to see if someone really means it when they say, I do. Or are they telling the truth when they say, I didn't? Without the language of tells, there would be no flirting, and sex as we know it would cease to exist. For love to work, two people have to be completely in tune with each other's needs and desires. It's like a dance. If people don't move together properly, things aren't going to work out. Looking for signs of physical harmony provides us with important clues to people's relationships. The coordination displayed by a couple, the way two people move in time to each other, is what psychologists call synchrony. There's nowhere better to see this than in one of the simplest acts of love, the kiss. You might think a kiss is just a kiss, but is it? Kisses vary enormously, and they are full of revealing tells. Gordon Brown may be a brilliant chancellor, but how does he rate as a kisser? He goes for his bride's lips, then when it's all over, she goes for his. They try again. But once more, their kisses are out of sync. Her kiss is over before his. This kiss is uncoordinated, but it's entirely understandable because the press are putting the newlyweds under a lot of pressure. And anyway, the Chancellor isn't used to parading his private life in front of the cameras. If you doubt the importance of synchrony, watch Kate Winslet and her first husband, Jim Threppleton. You'll see that they're out of sync. At the start, she offers the top of her head to be kissed, but then she starts to present her lips just when he's turning away. As he turns back towards her, she presents her forehead once again. At no point do they seem to want the same thing. Not long after this kiss, Kate and Jim parted company. There's much more coordination between Kate Winslet and her next husband, Sam Mendes. When he signals that he's about to kiss her, she reacts immediately, making sure that she's ready by the time his lips reach hers. Their movements before, during and after the kiss are synchronized. It's all done with exquisite timing, down to a fraction of a second. When people feel the same way about each other, synchrony comes naturally. When people aren't in tune with each other, it's much more difficult for them to synchronize their actions.
Forgive me if I'm repeating myself, but we all know that David and I know the same people.
Few people genuinely believed that Liza Minnelli and her new husband were a match made in heaven, and sadly, The tells show the doubters to be correct. As she stretches towards her latest flame, you can see signs that they don't want the same thing from each other. She's hoping for a kiss, but is met with a reluctant hug. It's not what she was after. It's not a good sign. When you start reading the tells, you begin to realize that a simple little act like kissing can provide important clues to people's attitudes towards each other. It can also show who's in control. Holding someone's face during a kiss looks like a gesture of enthusiasm, but it's not. It's a disguised way of controlling the other person. At a press conference, a journalist asks Al Pacino for a kiss.
I met you in New York a few years ago. You signed me an autograph and you gave me a kiss. Can you do it again, please?
Not wanting to appear ungracious, he agrees.
It's why I came. Make it personal.
Notice his fleeting facial grimace as she approaches. It shows he's having second thoughts. He's worried what she's going to do. When the kiss comes, he makes sure he's holding her face. That way he can control the kiss while giving the impression that he's enjoying it.
It's really getting better all the time coming here.
People who are genuinely in love have a strong need to be physically close. One way to achieve this is by keeping their palms in contact when they're holding hands. Watch Michael Jackson and Lisa Marie Presley. They look happy enough, but their hands are giving them away. They're using an air hold. The gap between their palms shows that they have no desire to be physically close to each other. Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman are posing as a happy couple, but there's no evidence of this in their handhold. Look how the gap between their palms reflects the chasm between them, because even when she moves towards him, he doesn't acknowledge her. Tells reflect the vital signs in every relationship. But a couple's long-term success can also be predicted from the tells that appear when they declare their commitment to each other. Including the time millions of television viewers watched the culmination of the greatest fairy tale romance of modern times. By reading the tells, you can spot whose marriage is set to last and whose looks doomed.
The experience of love goes hand in hand with the expression of love. Of course, people can always conceal or fake their emotions, but when it comes to love, people usually show their true feelings. That, after all, is what love is all about.
As well as displaying synchrony, successful couples need to be attentive to each other. Couples who are show it in their tells. You can see it in the way they look at each other. This isn't just to check out what state their partner is in, it's also to show that they care. The messages conveyed by gaze are powerful, more powerful than words. The contrasting weddings of two of the world's most famous brothers shows how attentiveness can communicate love, and how its absence can betray other feelings. When Edward and Sophie announced their engagement, many doubted that the marriage would last, but the cynics were wrong. The tells revealed that Edward and Sophie were deeply in love. It's evident in their sensitivity to each other and the way they operate as a team. Look at what happens when a journalist asks them a question.
What is it that makes you get along so well?
I don't know. We just do, really. I mean, it's just.
I think we share a number of interests.
Yeah.
We laugh a lot. We have a great friendship.
They're both looking ahead. As the question comes to an end, Sophie turns and looks at Edward, thereby passing the question on to him. He starts to answer, fluffs it, and then looks at Sophie, effectively passing the question to her.
I think we share a number of interests.
She's quick on the draw and gives a very good answer. As she does, she looks at Edward, partly to address him, but also to involve him in the answer. He nods and gives her lots of supportive encouragement throughout.
We have a great friendship.
Yeah.
What made you decide to announce?
Another journalist asks a question about announcing their intention to marry.
Announce it or actually decide to ask the question, you mean? So, no, it's just, I mean, it's impossible for anyone else to understand, you know, why it has taken me this long, but I don't think you'd have been right before, and I don't think Sophie would have said yes if I'd said before, and hopefully by the fact she did say yes, I must have got the timing right, so...
Once again, Sophie glances at Edward, thereby passing the question to him.
I don't know, what, announce it or actually decide to ask the question, you mean?
He clarifies the question, then gives a roundabout answer. While he's doing so, he checks out Sophie to make sure she's involved and that she approves.
I don't think you'd have been right before, and I don't think Sophie would have said yes if I'd said before, and hopefully by the fact she did say yes, I must have got the timing right, so...
The tells show that Edward and Sophie are attentive and sensitive to each other's needs. When Charles and Diana got engaged, the tells could not have been more different. Charles goes ahead, he's fiddling with his cuff, and they're not moving in step. They are physically attached, but it's all coming from Diana. You could take her out of the picture and Charles would look exactly the same. At this stage, Diana still had a lot to learn, and this showed in her behaviour. You could see from the way she purses her lips that she's feeling embarrassed. When they're asked if they're in love, she answers without delay.
Of course.
He offers that famous indirect answer.
Whatever in love means.
Yes. Well, it
you can put your own interpretation.
Obviously means two very happy people.
The greatest fairy tale romance in modern history seems very different when you look more closely at the tells.
Watch how the two of them use their eyes. While the Archbishop is reading out the groom's vows, Diana is gazing at Charles, but Charles is watching the Archbishop.
I will.
When the Archbishop reads out the bride's vows, Charles exchanges a fond, reassuring glance with Diana. That's a good sign, but from this point on, his eyes remain elsewhere. Down at the ground, up at the heavens, everywhere except at his chosen bride. By contrast, Edward and Sophie can't keep their eyes off each other. Edward is smiling, and so is Sophie.
I, Edward Anthony Richard Louis.
Take thee, Sophie Helen.
Take thee, Sophie Helen.
Their actions are attentive and synchronized. When Edward places the ring on Sophie's finger, he instinctively presses the outside fingers together. He's unconsciously protecting the marriage by making sure that the ring doesn't fall off. It's often in very tiny gestures, actions that we take for granted, or which we don't even notice, that the secret language of lovers' feelings is to be found.
One of the little-known tells of discomfort is this gesture. When people are feeling sad, they sometimes wipe away an imaginary tear. They don't know that they're doing it, but it's a sure sign that something is worrying them.
And therefore is not
Prince Charles uses this gesture right in the middle of his wedding.
unadvisedly, lightly or wantonly, but reverently, discreetly, soberly, and in the fear of God.
What's worrying him? Is he lamenting his lost youth? Or is there something else on his mind? Nearly 1 billion people watched this wedding on television. No one spotted Charles wiping his eye, and nor did I at the time. But this tiny tell spoke volumes about his discomfort. Observing the tells at a wedding helps to answer the question no one dares ask: will it last? It's easy to have the benefit of hindsight, but if I'd been at the wedding of Kate Winslet and Jim Threppleton, and I'd been watching the tells, I would probably have predicted that they were in for a bumpy ride. As they emerge from the church, they're tugging in different directions. She pulls one way and he pulls another. You get a distinct feeling that they're dancing to different tunes. Their attention is all over the place. They're seldom focused on each other. And when they do finally kiss for the cameras, it's uncoordinated. In fact, she kisses him so intensely that he's forced to draw back. It's not a good start, in spite of what Kate has to say.
Good day for you. Absolutely wonderful. Absolutely.
In fact, the marriage lasted just over 3 years. The TV presenter Zoe Ball and the DJ Norman Cook also began their married life with the wedding tells sounding a loud warning. When they appear for the photo shoot, he assumes the role of bridesmaid, fussing over her dress. Zoe is orchestrating the occasion and Norman is looking lost. You can see it in his submissive cant of the head. As they kiss for the cameras, she clasps his head in her hands. She's not being passionate, she's calling the shots. It's the same head hold we saw with Al Pacino. The tells on a wedding day can often show what lies ahead, but any couple can find out if they're suited long before they marry. In fact, they could know from the very first moment they meet. First meetings are critical. In fact, they're probably the most crucial staging post in a relationship. It's by looking at first meetings that we can tell if people are attentive to each other and whether things are going to work out. Where better to see this than at a speed dating evening, where instant chemistry holds the key to finding love. At tonight's event, there are 40 guests, 20 men and 20 women, and they've all been given scorecards.
We are going to have the girls sitting down and the boys...
They'll tick the dates they like, and if a date ticks them too, they'll be given the opportunity to meet again later.
Move on. But for the moment, if you want to go and sit down, okay, I hope you all have fun.
The encounters are 3 minutes long. Research on relationships reveals that people often form an impression of each other within the first 5 seconds. These processes are clearly at work here. We can see it in their eyes and in their facial expressions. While they're checking each other out, the speed daters are also trying to appear friendly, interesting and attractive. To appear attentive, they lean forward, gaze intently and nod. They may be anxious, but outwardly they're giving the impression that they're composed. And they're also trying to make their date feel relaxed. One thing guaranteed to help someone relax is laughter.
One of the clues as to whether or not a relationship is going to work out is laughter. Men love nothing more than to make a woman laugh. And what women are looking for is a man who makes them laugh.
That's why people rate a sense of humour in a potential mate so highly. You'll often see men trying to make women laugh. Laughter is an integral part of sexual attraction. Psychologists have discovered that the more a woman laughs during a first date, the keener she is to meet the man again. Surprisingly, laughter and smiling are quite different things. They are performing very different functions. Women smile much more than men. That's partly because the smile serves as a signal of appeasement. Men often try to appear dominant by not smiling. But when they meet a girl for the first time, they smile much more. It's a way of showing that they aren't a threat. To find out how men and women differ in their approach to first meetings, I decided to track 2 of the speed daters. I chose them because I thought they'd be attractive to the opposite sex. The first was Chris. Chris is a big smiler, never failing to disarm his date. He's attentive and encouraging.
Frequented their establishments frequently and passionately.
He's always eager to ask the girls about themselves.
And are you from that neck of the woods originally, or right? Yeah.
He's got lots of questions. Unfortunately, they tend to be stock questions. It sounds more like an interview than a conversation.
Mag, what do you like doing in your spare time? What sort of man are you looking for then? You haven't been watching the rugby on the TV. What do you do for fun then? Do you work around this part of town? Or what do you like doing? What's your recreation of choice?
But this doesn't mean he's doing badly. It's just a typically male approach to a social situation.
Mixed boys and girls? Yeah.
I also tracked Vicky.
Yeah.
Her approach is very different from Chris's. She's adaptive. With every date, she asks different questions and the conversations evolve spontaneously.
Oh, you're right. All right, mate. How are you doing?
Not bad, yourself?
Good.
I'll tell you about my activities outside work.
Fine.
They're more interesting.
That's fantastic, because I'd rather not talk about work as well, so bring it on.
Like half an hour on the
yes.
line on the tube.
Yeah, not bad.
There's an island thing, it's called the White Sands.
Notice her attentiveness and the animation in her face when she's asking a question.
I didn't actually have time for that.
She widens her eyes and raises her eyebrows. As soon as she's completed the question, she stops talking and gives her date a chance to respond.
They got this jellyfish, the hurricane.
She opens her mouth as a sign of astonishment, nods her head in encouragement, and raises her eyebrows to show how impressed she is. She's showing her date that she's interested in what he has to say, and that she can identify with his feelings.
Actually, not go out every single night, I would imagine.
Although she doesn't know it, Vicky is displaying her facial facility. Her tells demonstrate that she's capable of a wide range of emotions and that she knows how to display them appropriately. In evolutionary terms, she's telling him that she would make a sensitive mate and a caring mother.
An hour and a half of yoga.
Good man. Wow.
So I'm actually feeling very at peace with myself.
At the end of the evening, it's no surprise that every one of the 20 men ticked Vicky. Chris was the most popular man at the event. 13 women ticked him. When it comes to first impressions, there's no doubt that women have the upper hand. On average, the men ticked twice as many people as the women.
Although we don't know it, we're constantly sending and receiving sexual messages. Other people are looking us over and deciding whether we are attractive, and we're doing the same to them.
Speed dating is built on first impressions. There's very little time for much more than that. But a typical night on the town is a much more complex situation for would-be lovers. So how do people approach each other, appear seductive, and ward off competition? We're about to find out. Imagine what it would be like to be a fly on the wall for a whole evening when men and women are busy sizing each other up. You could study all the unspoken exchanges between them, every nervous glance, every flirtatious gesture, every tell they needed to exchange for a love affair to get started. That's exactly what I'll be doing tonight. I'm hosting a unique party. It could be any bar, any club, any Saturday night, but it's not. We've invited 15 single men and 15 single women, and we've set up cameras in every corner of the room. We'll be watching out for all the little telltale signs they send to people they fancy and the people they don't. I'm going to scrutinize what happens between my 30 guests over the next 4 hours. Being in a bar may never feel the same again. Welcome to the Love Lab.
A little bit of grooving, moving, see what happens.
I got on with him really well.
Well, she's not the most friendly, Not more.
I don't normally use chat blinds and things like that because it doesn't really work.
Did you do anything to encourage it?
No.
But I have actually got a chat blind book.
It's always the way, isn't it, though? You know, he'd probably be a friend.
Yeah, we've got on very well. We seem to be at the same sort of level.
Beggars can't be choosers, really, you know what I mean?
The female guests have been asked to arrive early and are getting to know each other. How will the behaviour of the women change when the men enter the room? As the men start to arrive, we see them flicking their hair. The hair flick is a classic example of preening. Preening helps a girl in several ways. First, she's showing her crowning glory, a soft, bouncy, youthful feature she's proud of. Then she's telling the man she's noticed him. She's saying, "Look at my hair and look at me." Among women, preening is not only common, it's contagious. 3 of the 4 girls in this group preen themselves by flicking their hair. 1, 2, 3. It's like a Mexican wave. In a competitive environment, all the girls want to make sure that they're looking their best. Men like to think that they do all the running and that they make the first move. But watch how it's actually the women who initiate things.
Okay, now let's just see if we can track this one.
Let's slow time down and study in detail what happens when Richard arrives at the party. From the moment that Kate spots Richard, she doesn't stop staring. He notices this and looks back at her. Kate's friend Sarah also turns and looks at Richard and flicks her hair appreciatively. These glances take less than a second, but this moment may change their evening. It could even change their lives. Courtship is almost always a matter of female choice, and in a bar, it's the woman who invariably makes the first move. She does this by producing an approach tell. Anton and Marius move towards a group of girls. They're waiting for an approach tell. Jasmine on the left spots them standing alone. She stares at them and gives them a smile. This is an approach tell. It says to the guys, "You may approach me now." Yvonne turns to see the guys and also smiles, sending the same signal. Without an approach tell, you may as well not be there. One of these men is part of the group. The other isn't, but wishes he were. He steps forward, tries to be physically involved, but to no avail. Even when he's left alone with the girls, a perfect opportunity to move in, he stands there expectantly, watching them, patiently waiting for an inviting signal from one of them. But it never comes. Without an approach tell from one of the girls, there's very little he can do to be accepted. So he carries on, looking slightly lost and waiting. Kate and Sarah are still talking to Richard. It's evident that they both like him, but it's difficult because they're close friends. Look how they use their hair, their mouth and their eyes to keep Richard's attention. Kate raises her shoulder, fixes her eyes on Richard and smiles. This is a coquettish gesture and it's designed to grab his attention. As soon as Kate becomes flirtatious, Sarah averts her eyes and withdraws. When Kate realizes that her friend has withdrawn, she points at Sarah, involving her once again. There are other subtle signs of friendly competition between the two girls. Sarah exposes her neck. This is a submissive, flirtatious gesture because it presents a very vulnerable part of the body. It says, "Look, I'm not a threat. I trust you not to harm me." Kate goes to the bar, and as she passes Richard, she discreetly pats him on the bum. This is definitely a provocative gesture. It's below the belt, and it's very early in the encounter. It says to Richard, "Don't forget me, I'll be back." We can see that Kate has managed to arouse Richard, because while she's away, he's constantly looking out for her.
Move over. That's it.
Beverly and John have been chatting to each other for ages. They're oriented towards each other, ignoring everything and everyone else.
How do we know whether he's equally committed to her? Well, let's just look at his feet. There you are, legs crossed. That's a very important tell. It tells us, but not necessarily him or her, that he's entirely committed to that conversation. He has absolutely no intention of moving on.
Sarah has also crossed her legs. She too has no intention of leaving. Richard is still looking around. He's missing Kate. Now it's Sarah's chance to make a move.
One of the things you'll find is that women often preen themselves when they've lost the attention of the guys they've been talking to.
Watch how she uses her hair, her mouth and her eyes. Sarah preens the right side of her body, almost as if she's trying to draw Richard away from the centre of the room where Kate is to be found. She becomes more animated in an attempt to hold his attention. Now she deploys her killer tell, the eye pop. She closes her eyes and then opens them, pop, fixing him with a loving stare. This seems to be working because Richard is much more engaged in the conversation. But Sarah's not entirely at ease because she keeps glancing to her left, keeping a lookout for Kate. She sees that Kate is busy elsewhere, so she produces a barrage of flirtatious tells. There's a little head cant, then there's an eye pop, followed by an exaggerated look of incredulity. After that, she raises her eyebrows, flicks her hair, and produces an emphatic grimace. But has the barrage of tells worked? When Kate returns, she picks up where she left off. Sarah doesn't continue to make a play for Richard because she looks away and detaches herself. Beverly and John are still talking, but her feet show that the mood has changed. John's legs are still crossed. He's quite happy, but Beverly's right foot is pointing into the crowd. It's an unconscious intention movement.
The chemistry is not working at the moment. She's obviously looking for something better.
She wants to move on. Her facial expressions are now much more controlled, and when she gets a chance, she looks away. John is now using much more exaggerated hand movements, trying to keep their conversation alive, but it's a losing battle. He cracks a joke, and they part company. Looking lost and tense, he takes a swig, looks at his watch, and then releases the tension. Anton is bored and looking round the room. Now it's his turn to move on, and he knows exactly where he's going. Kate is the target. He shakes only her hand and secures a hug. Kate turns her body towards Richard and Sarah when she puts her arm around Anton. She's reducing the intimacy of the hug and showing the others what she's doing. She's making it look friendly and nothing more. She pats Anton on the back just before the two of them let go. Pats like these pretend to be a gesture of affection, but they're not. They are a release signal. They tell the other person that it's time to let go. Richard, Kate and Sarah have spent a lot of time together. The tells show that Richard is interested in Kate. They also reveal that Richard regards Anton's arrival as a serious threat. Although Richard is doing his best to hide his feelings, he's giving off distress signals. There's a distinct lack of expression. See how he runs his tongue over his teeth. They are his primitive weapons. It's a disguised signal of aggression. When he shakes hands with Anton, Richard tries to appear relaxed.
He's smiling furiously, but it's a completely fake smile. He's deeply unhappy.
One tell really gives away his discomfort. His chin is pulled back. This is the chin tuck. It's what we do when we are feeling threatened. We react as if someone is about to punch us metaphorically on the chin. To make matters worse, Marius arrives. Despite Richard's insecurity, the physical arrangement of the group is revealing. The two girls have lined up beside Richard. They're showing their allegiance to him. But this doesn't stop them sending flirtatious signals to Anton and Marius. Women flirt with men even when they are not sexually interested in them. That's partly because, for lots of girls, flirting is like good manners. It's something you do even though you don't mean it. This also explains why Vicky, at the end of the speed dating night, only ticked 2 of the men, but was ticked by all 20 of them.
Any regrets?
Kate's nice. Kate's very nice.
Did he flirt with you?
No.
Did he fancy you?
No.
Did you flirt with him in any way?
No. I know you might think I do,
But why would I think you did? What did you do?
I'm just smiley and nice to people. I think that maybe that might be misinterpreted as being flirtatious.
Men are notoriously poor at decoding women's signals. But if they're always receiving seemingly positive feedback, no wonder they're so confused. So we've seen how tells can reveal the secret dynamics of relationships from first meeting to marriage. But how do couples show that they're together? How do they protect their relationship? And, in spite of their best efforts, how do the tells reveal illicit affairs? We've seen that people who are in love often mirror each other's actions. They move together and they're in step. But in established relationships, other tells appear. They're to do with possession, dominance, and deception.
It's sometimes very difficult to know what's happening in other people's relationships, or even one's own. But when you learn to read the secret language of tells, all that changes. So what can we learn by watching celebrity couples as they strut their stuff along the red carpet?
When celebrity couples appear in public, there can sometimes be a problem if one of them gets more attention than the other. John Travolta and his wife Kelly Preston are being interviewed at a movie premiere. The focus is entirely on John.
Combination is gives you an actor something to do.
We can see that Kelly feels left out because she flicks her hair. She wants some attention. She realizes that she's not going to get any, so she gives up and gives her husband a supportive and loving look. Here at this year's BAFTAs, it's the other way around. Holly Hunter is coming down the red carpet with her partner. The adulation's all for her. She's looking at the fans, he's looking ahead. She lets go of his hand and goes to sign autographs. He's not getting any attention. But he doesn't flick his hair. Instead, he puts his hand on Holly's shoulder. This is what's called a tie sign. It's a public signal that they are connected, that figuratively they're tied together. It's a cold night and she's got a bare back, and that's ostensibly why he's rubbing her so vigorously. But there's something else going on, because when someone offers her a shawl, he carries on where he left off. This simple little action is actually performing several relationship tasks at the same time. It's telling everyone that he's used to touching her in an intimate way, and it's a reminder to her that he's still there. But it also tells the adoring fans that while they can enjoy her for the moment, she belongs to him.
That's a classic mate guarding display. It's a possessive tell.
Chris Evans goes one stage further and pats his wife Billie Piper on the bottom. This is meant to look like an intimate little gesture between lovers, but in fact it's a more overt mate guarding display. It's designed to remind everyone that she's his. There are other ways that couples show their possessiveness and lay claims to each other's attention. Catherine Zeta-Jones and Michael Douglas are attending a premiere for one of her films. Even though Michael's a star in his own right, this time all eyes are on Catherine. They're holding hands, but she's got the front hold and he's got the back hold. It's not because she's taller, it's because she's in control. Michael touches Catherine possessively, working his hand up her back. She obviously doesn't want this distraction because her hand comes round and flicks him off. It's not what she wants. He moves away, looking dejected. She grabs his hand. Once again, she's got the front hold position. She's clearly enjoying the attention because she's not looking at Michael at all. But this time, he doesn't touch her, he uses his eyes. Watch how Michael stares at her. This looks like adoration, but it isn't. It's an eye pull. Michael is feeling left out. He's using his eyes to get Catherine to acknowledge him so that he can feel part of the action. The tells show that people who are in established relationships behave quite differently from those who are in the early stages of courtship. The emotional evolution of relationships, the way they grow or decay, is always articulated in couples' tells. In the early days of Charles and Diana's marriage, it seemed to many that they were dancing to the same tune.
You've got a plastic whale that throws things out the top, little balls.
There were signs of loving collusion, as well as examples of physical intimacy. Here, for example, he teases her by touching her on the bum, and she responds playfully. When Charles and Diana started to become estranged, they tried to put on a brave face, but their worsening relationship and the misery they were experiencing showed in the tells. The story the tells reveal about Diana is that in public she learned how to play to the cameras, but in private, when she wasn't aware she was being filmed, the tells revealed the truth. Her emotions were too strong for her to keep hidden. The true nature of a relationship is revealed to the world through tells, through synchrony, attentiveness, intimacy, and tie signs. During the early part of Prince Charles's relationship with Camilla Parker Bowles, there weren't any of these signs on show because their affair was deliberately kept out of the public eye. When they attended a public function together, Charles would leave first. Camilla would leave afterwards. Here we can see her trying to slip away unnoticed. All of this might have changed in 1999 when Charles and Camilla appeared at the Ritz Hotel in London. Officially, they were now together, but were they in step? The watching public didn't know where the relationship was heading because even when they were seen together, it still wasn't clear what Charles and Camilla felt about each other. That's because the tells were being suppressed. The uncertainty about her role may also explain why Camilla is so uneasy with the public and the media. Camilla is with the Beaufort Hunt. She's waiting for the start. She knows she's being watched, and it's making her feel anxious. We can see this from the way she swivels her head and repeatedly licks her lips, a sure sign that she's feeling nervous. Her reactions are very different from those of Diana. But how do tells help at the sharp end of marriage when one side has been unfaithful? Can you tell when your partner is lying? Let's explore the marriage of one of the world's most prominent couples.
William Jefferson Clinton.
Bill Clinton had a real problem over the Monica Lewinsky affair. While most men who are caught with their pants down have to explain themselves in private, he had to do so in front of a grand jury and millions of television viewers.
Asked you if she believed that the definition of sexual relationship was two people having intercourse, then this is accurate.
Clinton had worked out his version of events, and he was sticking to it.
That depends on what was in her mind. I don't know what was in her mind. You'll have to ask her that.
Like every man who stands accused of infidelity, he was struggling to appear composed and to be convincing. Look at the tells on display.
I do.
If you were his wife, would you believe him? Here are the things to look out for. First, there's his blink rate. If it's faster than usual, it means that the person is under pressure, and it can be an indicator of lying. Here there are 60 blinks per minute. That's 3 times the normal rate.
If you say two people are having a sexual relationship, most people believe that includes intercourse.
There are signs of deception in his hands. Clasping them together is a way of symbolically concealing his thoughts. It's also a means of self-comfort. But there's another gesture here which reveals what's going on in Clinton's mind. See how he forms a fist and covers it with the other hand. He's feeling aggressive but trying to hide it. He's also using his hands to partially cover his mouth. That's a way of concealing what he's got to say. This gesture is frequently associated with lying.
Between your personal
When it comes to lying, the mouth is the most revealing part of the body. His mouth is feeling dry. That's why he licks his lips so often. A dry mouth is a classic sign of anxiety, frequently associated with telling lies. That's also why he's feeling thirsty. If you were Mrs. Clinton and you knew all this, you would not be happy.
No, sir, I didn't do that.
We all use tells to make others trust us, love us, and sometimes just to get our own way. They are the building blocks of every relationship. Without them, we could not move from one stage of a relationship to the next.
Once you can read the tells, other people's relationships become an open book.
But the language of tells also helps us to discover what our own partner feels about us and what we really feel about them.
The secret language of tells can expose the love life of presidents, princesses, and movie stars. It can also reveal the truth about yours.
For more about how your body gives you away, go to channel4.com/bodytalk. Marking the 60th anniversary of D-Day next on 4, recollections from people who shaped the extraordinary events and dramatic reconstructions tell the epic story of 10 days to D-Day. And next Monday at 8, Secret History reveals the disaster that saw hundreds of men killed whilst rehearsing for the invasion.